What's up, gang? Welcome to Room and Board. My name is Chris George, and today we are taking a look at the 5 reasons why you shouldn't back Six Siege by Mythic Games, which is out on Kickstarter right now until July 2nd. And I've done a couple videos in this series now, but if you're new to the channel, the basic premise is this. Unfortunately, I don't have an unlimited budget to spend on board games every month, or even every year. And yet, I love spending as if I do. So until my board game budget increases, make sure to like and subscribe, I have to be a little bit more choosy with what I back. And so this is a series where I try and talk myself out of backing a game and hope that you will end up talking me into it in the comments. And to be clear, I'm only going to ever do this series for campaigns that are having no trouble being funded. Right now, Six Siege has raised over $1 million Canadian, because ultimately I want more board game campaigns to succeed than not. However, more than that, I want you to be happy with your purchase and free from any regret. So for those of you who are excited about Six Siege, and currently it's over 6,000 of you, this is not intended to quench any of that excitement, but to make sure you're as excited when this game arrives at your door. And I think out of the 3 videos I've made in this series, Six Siege is the one that I'm the most drawn into. I'm really tempted to get this one, and there's a lot to be pumped about. The $69 price point, $84 Canadian, doesn't seem too unreasonable for a Mythic Games Kickstarter, which I tend to associate with things like Joan of Arc, Hell the Last Saga, Darkest Dungeon, all of which their base pledge was over $100. The gameplay looks pretty cool to me, and I guess I must be drawn into the theme because this is one of the first skirmish games that I'm really quite eager to try. I've never played the video game, but I have played many games that are similar, and I've read some Tom Clancy books and enjoyed them, but not to the extent where I'd call myself like a Rainbow Six or Tom Clancy fan, you know? I'm friendly towards the IP, but it doesn't necessarily incite that sort of hype in me. And I really expected there to be more of a hype train surrounding this game. And that's one part that I'm really loving about the campaign so far, is that the game and the gameplay seem to be taking front and center. I love how streamlined this campaign is, especially since it's a shorter time frame, so all the information is already out there for you to know and to help you make a decision if Six Siege is right for you. Ask your doctor. And I think it's awesome, and it actually gets me more excited about the game itself, that most of the add-ons aren't necessarily drastic changes to the game or Kickstarter plastic bloat. It's primarily more variability, with additional characters and additional map packs. That, to me, shows confidence in the game by the publisher, because they don't need to dress it up. They know they've got a good product, and they're confident they can provide you with as much of that sweet product as you'd like. And man, does it look fun. I don't normally watch the Kickstarter videos. I prefer to read the rule book and look through what they present on the main campaign. But if that video doesn't encapsulate the video game turned into a board game, I don't know what will. Obviously, it's got great production value because Ubisoft helped make it, and you can see incorporations of the first-person video game in it, planting the charges, bursting through the wall, but it's just fantastic. And from the various playthroughs and videos that I've watched, it seems pretty true to the feeling that you're gonna get when you fully immerse yourself in this game. If you want the feeling of breaking down a wall and running into cover, I mean, this looks like the ticket. If you're a fan of Six Siege, the video game, I'm assuming you're already backing. But enough of this excitement. I'm going to talk myself out of the second half of the video. We need reasons why you shouldn't back. And actually, one of the reasons on this list is actually a positive for me, but it's included because I feel like it could be a negative for some people. So let's get into it. What certainly is a positive for nobody is our number 5, which is, while the core box seems like a reasonable price, the current shipping estimate is anything but. It's $32 for Canadians, $29 if you live in the US or Europe, and if you don't live in the cities listed, well, you might as well forget about it entirely. And this is something that's going to come with the territory of backing any Kickstarter for probably the next year, I'm going to guess, because the shipping crisis of not having enough boats and too many containers will continue. I can't imagine why that is. And so while that initial core pledge of $69 seems doable, you're really looking at a core box of $100, which is 125 Canadian, and this number ain't so shiny as the previous one, especially when you factor in that this is most likely going to hit retail. Mythic have said that they're going to try to get this into retail, but a different version. What that translates to me is, yeah, it's going to be in retail. Think about the IP. It's just that the Kickstarter exclusives and daily unlocks won't be a part of that package. Which brings us to number 4, and that's that the daily unlocks, since there are no stretch goals, are kind of underwhelming. For now, we have about 7 days left in the campaign as of this video, but especially if you're only getting the core box. If the trend continues, it looks like we're just turning all the cardboard equipment that's specific to individual characters into plastic. And that's kind of it. There will also be voting throughout the campaign on which video skin / alternate sculpt / alternate stat mini you're going to get. And at first I was excited about the votes because I thought, okay, well, you're guaranteed to get at least 7 additional figures into your core box. That's somewhat of an incentive. But at this point, it's looking like the votes will also be for those multiple expansion add-on boxes. And so if you're going for the core box, which, let's be honest, is all many budgets will allow, mine included, you're going to get, my guess is, 3 extra figures, maybe. And if you want all the additional alternate sculpts, you still have to get the Trooper Pledge, which is $200. And at that point, you already have 59 miniatures. Is an extra 7 going to make a significant difference in your replayability? Doesn't seem like it to me. So far, nothing about these stretch goals, daily unlocks, are really bringing me in a way that I know a retail version couldn't. But let's talk about the game itself. The third reason why you maybe shouldn't back 6 Siege might seem like an obvious one, and it's that if real-time games stress you out, or if you don't enjoy them, because I think that stress is part of the fun. You might feel like the real-time thing is kind of a gimmick, but for me, it's one of the things that makes this game feel unique and differentiates it from a lot of the other games out there that do kind of similar things. Now, there is a mode where you don't have that time pressure element, but I think if that's the primary way you're going to end up playing this game, I think there are cheaper options out there which do similar things. What I love about 6 Siege and what really attracts me is that you're going to make mistakes. It's going to feel fun when your opponent doesn't notice that trap that you set up, and you can say, aha, gotcha. And that's going to happen more often when you're pressed for time. Now, I suppose you could implement a timer into any game, and more mistakes will happen, I guess, if that's the only goal. But here it just meshes with the gameplay and the mechanics so nicely that I really think the game will suffer if you don't play with this element. And if you don't like games that do this sort of thing, well then this might be one you should take a pass on. I wanted to emphasize this as its own point because I feel on the Kickstarter page, as you scroll through, it's kind of presented as an optional thing. Oh, and add a time pressure. But from everything that I've read and I've watched, it to me seems like the only way you're going to want to play this game. And you'll be missing out if you don't. And speaking of the only way to play the game, let's be real, this is a 2-player game. It says 2 to 4 players in the box, sure, but it's not going to shine at anything more than 2. This is evident to me simply by the multiplayer rules appearing on page 27 of the rulebook in a very small paragraph. And I think this is important to think about because most of us have gaming groups that we play with the majority of the time. Or maybe not. Maybe you're a primarily 2-player game and this is perfect for you. But I think it's worth considering in terms of how often this will realistically hit the table. Personally, I have a lot of different groups with which I play games, but they mostly range in the 3 to 5 player count. And I know that if I get 6 Siege, chances are I probably won't end up playing it with them. Or not super frequently. Your group may be different. Maybe it ranges 2 to 4, and you always have that one friend who shows up late. In that case, 6 Siege might be perfect, because you can play it before they get there, and if they arrive while the game is in progress, they can jump in, because the multiplayer rules are very similar to multiplayer in Zombicide. Same number of operators, just more people controlling them. I could definitely see it fitting the bill for those types of gaming groups, but for me, I don't see it happening too frequently with my 3 to 5 group. And so what I'm trying to consider, and I think the number one thing anyone should probably consider is, will my primary gaming partner like this game? The person with whom you play those 2-player games. And this ties into the previous point, maybe it's not different enough, so I'll bundle it in with a couple other things to consider. But for me, I know that I will most likely be playing this game with my girlfriend, and I know she isn't crazy about games that have line of sight. So does your partner hate skirmish games, or hate games with line of sight, or any other major element that 6 Siege provides. This is a game where it might be difficult to keep track of every character's unique ability within that time crunch. This is also a game where one player can get significantly better than the other player, and punishes players when they lose operators because they also lose time. The weak do get weaker, and I can see some games snowballing to a point where it doesn't really feel like there's any way to catch up. And will your partner hate it if this happens to them and then never want to play this game with you again? Because while it might be lovely to have all those extra operators and extra map packs and what looks to be a pretty exciting game, it may be slightly less exciting if you don't get to play it. So maybe get that person's opinion before you buy it. That's it. Something to consider. I think where I'm currently standing is I'm pretty stoked to get a copy of this game because I think I'll really enjoy it and I hope to force it upon my girlfriend, but I'm probably going to wait for it in retail and let my friendly local game store pay the shipping for me because the daily unlocks are meh. And it's a big enough IP, I think, and Mythic is a big enough publisher that I'm willing to take that gamble that it will end up in retail. Because some Kickstarters don't, it's true. If they end up throughout the campaign adding in an extra map pack or something to offset that extra $40 in shipping, I may end up changing my mind because I think most of the variability will come from these extra maps and not necessarily these extra characters. That could tempt me, but right now I'm comfortable where I'm at. What about you? Are you backing? Does this style of game even interest you? Will you refuse to back until they officially change the rules for leaning your figure around a corner? On every video that I've watched, in the comments there's this one person who's commented on every single video that they hate the leaning rules and they should be changed because they're counterintuitive. But I actually disagree because the way the leaning is structured, it opens the door for your opponent to not notice that you're leaning, which then gives you more of those mistakes and the aha, gotcha, which I am personally looking forward to. Anyway, that's a tangent for the comments. Write in the comments below, let me know how you feel about it all. And if you wouldn't mind, hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't, because I love this community we're building and I look forward to having it grow even more. And at 1,000 subs, I'll give away a game. Anyway, until next time, my name's Chris George and I still don't have a catchphrase, so this one goes out to Sam Healy and I'll see ya on the flip side. Bye.